Fine. All right. So we have our esteemed speaker, Charan Das, who's a mentor, monk, and a speaker. So Chaitanya Prabhu, he's a spiritual teacher and nearly 30 years of experience in the Bhakti Yoga tradition, and is part of International Society for Krishna Consciousness, ISKCON. He's a prolific author, and also he has written 30 books which talks about Vedic wisdom, including Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana. He's also author of multiple internet blogs, online blogs like Gita Daily, which actually publishes article every day about Bhagavad Gita. There are many other things like Bhagavad Gita blogs, and there are more than 5,000 articles that are featured there. And Prabhuji has also been giving talks on TEDx, UNESCO World Peace Conference, Intel, Google, and now in Microsoft, Salesforce, and many other places. And he has given at least 400 talks across 100 cities every year. So much of talks he gives every year. And today, his recent book, he'll be talking about a topic from his recent book, which is Bhagavad Gita for CEO. We also have the option to purchase those books on a signed copy for those who are available offline. For those online, you can always buy it from Amazon, but if possible, please come join us in person, and so that you can get benefited and you can also get an option to get a signed copy. So we are just getting a bit of technical glitch, and we are almost about to get started because we're trying to join. Start? Yeah, we can start then. All right, so over to Prabhuji. Is it audible?
Am I audible better now? Behind, can you hear me?
All right, so we'll present a bouquet to Prabhuji to welcome him. Thank you. Thank you for coming here from so far. Thank you.
So let us begin by calming and centering ourselves. So wherever you're seated, try to just relax your muscles and become a little comfortable. And we'll take 3 deep breaths. So just experience the breath as it comes in and as it goes out. Try to breathe as deeply as you can. As you breathe in, feel the energy from the universe coming out inside you. As you breathe out, feel all the distraction, apathy, negativity going out from within you. Now let us try to connect with the higher energies in the universe. We'll together utter the sound Om. This is a sound by which we can connect with the cosmic energy all around us. We'll recite it together and we'll try to draw the sound within it, the middle of it, as long as possible. Please take a deep breath. Together. Let's do this 2 more times. 3 deep breaths and then a long Om. Try to feel the breath going in and going out from your nose into your chest and your body. Once more, Om together. Thank you. One last time. 3 breaths. and an Om. And last time. Take 3 deep breaths and then gently open your eyes. Thank you. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And I'll be speaking on the topic of resilience. I'll be writing and drawing some things over here as a way of explaining and illustrating. I'd like to start by asking you, why do you think resilience is important for us in our life, in our corporate life? What does resilience mean to you? And why do you think is it important? Any thoughts?
Swamiji, I think it is required to,
Sorry, is the voice from? It's online
hello?
voice, isn't it? Okay. Okay, Kashwari. It's a good one. Yes, please, go ahead.
Swamiji, I was saying the resilience is required in this world, especially in these days, because of to bear the stress that one is incurring.
Yes. Stress can increase enormously in today's life. So to bear stress, we need resilience. In fact, if we consider a heavy construction is being done, then we want to know how much is stress bearing capacity of the bars below. Like that, how much is the resilience? The world will often burden us with huge challenges, problems. So it's like resilience is like our stress bearing capacity. Thank you. Anything else? Yeah. So life is survival of the fittest. So resilience is about either being the fittest, or even if you're not the fittest, at least we become fit. We recover from the blows and the wounds that life causes us. Yes, thank you. Anything else? Oh, really? You're not joined over here. Okay. Okay. Share photo, share video. Its screen is being shared here. Okay, so good. Mentioned it at least. Okay. It reached till there. Should I come closer? No, but no, but if I change it. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Interesting. You will think that I'm making some notes of the class for myself. Others. Okay. So, okay. So, any other points about the importance of resilience? Yes, in one sense, distractions keep coming in our life, and then we can get irritated, we can get frustrated by the distractions. So, distractions can pull us off in different directions, but then we need to come back. That's resilience. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Bounce back and fall is almost certain sometimes. They're beautifully good. Okay. Thank you. So resilience is about bouncing back. And a resilient person is like a ball. Now, if a ball is thrown down, it bounces back. If I take, this is not a glass to glass, but if it were a glass, if I threw it down, just crack apart. So a person who is lacking in resilience breaks apart. Yes. Adaptability, emotional regulation. Yes. Many good points. A resilient person can adapt to situations, and we have our emotions which keep going up and down. And just as we need if electricity is flowing, we need a regulator for our electricity. So we need a regulator for our emotions also. And resilience enables us to become regulated. Thank you. So I'll talk about resilience in broadly three parts. That what we require for resilience can be summarized in an acronym ACT. Now, when we talk about resilience, generally the idea is that life keeps going up and down. So, kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. However, sometimes it appears to us that life is going down and keeps going down, down, down only. It doesn't seem to be, we think, when is it going to rise up at all? And it's one thing to face negativities, it's another thing to face negativities alone. It's that, if everybody falls sick, say if there's a COVID pandemic and everybody falls sick, then okay, it still feel bad, but it's okay. But if we alone fall sick, there's a flu going around and only we get the flu and nobody else gets the flu. So why did this happen? So often what happens is when things go down, and especially our emotions go wild when we feel things are unfair to us. So the first A in resilience is acceptance. Now, acceptance means that, say, if life knocks us down, when life has knocked us down, there are two ways, unhealthy ways in which you might react. Any problem? Oh, wow. It was not connected only. I didn't connect it at all.
There, I will. Something went wrong in the meeting that you were. Okay. No.
Okay. Okay, then that's fine. But can
See it?
let me write something over here. Is it coming? Okay, good. So now what does acceptance mean? Now, acceptance, sometimes our mind rails against the idea of accepting because we equate acceptance with passivity. When something feels unfair, when we are knocked down, when life has treated us badly, people have treated us badly. So at that time, acceptance, sometimes we think it means passivity. Why should I accept this? So one extreme is passivity means I can do nothing about it. But the other extreme is denial. Trying to act as if it has not happened only. Trying to act as if things are just the way they are when actually things have changed. So both of these are unhealthy responses. So acceptance means that if we consider life to be a fight, there are sometimes some battles which we may lose. I travel across the world, and many times now I give talks to different audiences. So sometimes I ask to, because you may notice I need crutches for walking. So I'm sometimes invited to give talks to people with special needs. And after my talk, when many of these participants come and talk with me, one of the things that strikes me is how many of them are fighting battles that were lost long ago. Somebody had an accident in which they lost an eye or they lost a limb. All these are tragic, sometimes horrific stories. But it's something that happened long ago. And it's over. So now, as long as they're resenting that, Oh, why did this happen to me? Then that means in fighting battles that are already lost, much of their energy gets lost. So, as far as I am concerned, I don't remember any time feeling very resentful that I need crutches for walking, I can't walk normally. And to a large extent, the credit for this goes to my parents. When I was one, I got polio. I don't remember that incident, but apparently I was told that my mother took me to get a vaccine. The polio vaccine is among the most effective vaccines in the world. But somehow, in the place where I was staying, it was a small town in Maharashtra, and there, the clinic where we were supposed to get the polio vaccine, the power in that clinic had gone off the previous night. And because of that, the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept, its temperature had risen. And because of that, the germs multiplied. And the result was, instead of the vaccine preventing the polio, the vaccine ended up causing the polio. So now I don't remember that, but I was about 2.5 or 3. And at that time, a distant relative had come to our home and she was consoling my mother, saying, "Oh, it's so sad your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. Said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. I don't know why my mother said that, whether it was an observation or whether it's a prediction, whatever it was. She said that, and that stayed with me. And as I grew up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. But I found that I could read quite fast, I could remember well, I could articulate clearly, my grasping power was good. And somewhere at the back of my mind, this understanding settled that, yeah, I could say that I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. And that's true. But then I could also say that I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability. So, in one sense, life is unfair. But in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means sometimes we get less than what we deserve, sometimes we get more than what we deserve. Quite often for us, say, we put in work worth 100 and then we get a result worth 10. So it becomes very difficult to accept. Sometimes we may put a lot of work and we get not only less result, we get the opposite result. We get minus 10. So these are the things that we tend to remember when life has treated us unfairly. Maybe we join a team and we work very hard in the team. We do majority of the work. But when the project is completed, our name comes just as one footnote somewhere. Hey, I was treated unfairly. We feel like that. So now that is true. But this is we tend, but we can also try to remember there may be times when we do work worth 10 and we get result worth 100. Maybe we join a team when the project is near its conclusion and that project gets completed and the project is successful and we become a part of the winning team. So, when India won the World Cup, there was one cricket player who didn't play a single match and yet he was a part of the winning team. So, life in the long run is fairly unfair. So now when life is fairly unfair, if I am here, if I choose to fixate on the unfair part, then that is where we become resentful. Why is it unfair? But if we choose to focus on the fact that, yes, maybe I got a raw deal right now, but I have got good deals also in the past. I've had strokes of good fortune. So what is sometimes called, I got a lucky break over there. So if we see that, then acceptance, can become more accepting. So acceptance means that sometimes we lose some battles. And to the extent we can accept, to that extent we can move on. So acceptance, if we go back over here, it's not passivity. Why? It's acceptance is is letting go of lost battles. It is not, we make peace with reality. Now, make peace with reality does not mean that reality has to stay on that way all the time. But right now, this is how it is. So, acceptance is the first stage. Now, after acceptance, what was the acronym I was discussing? ACT, yes. Then C is curiosity. What do I mean by curiosity over here? Whenever something happens, our mind tends to label that thing. Oh, this is terrible. This is unfair. This is horrible. This is the end of my life. So sometimes we tend to catastrophize. So now curiosity, I am saying, it is the opposite of labeling. It is the opposite of judgmentality. That whenever something has happened, yes, something, it may be very bad. It may seem to be like a disaster. But when life closes one door, it is quite likely that another door is opening. But what happens sometimes when life closes a door, we close our eyes. We close our eyes in anger, and then even if some other door is opening, we won't notice it. So curiosity is, okay, this has happened. But what is the exact situation? A simple way to cultivate curiosity is to see, sometimes we try to control our emotions. Don't feel so negative, don't feel so bad, don't feel so sad. But it's very difficult to control our emotions. One point was mentioned about emotional regulation. Yes, we all need to regulate our emotions, but the way to regulate our emotions is not by trying to crush or control them. No, it is, instead of trying to instruct and control our emotions, we can just try to change our driving question. Instead of saying, oh, I'm feeling terrible. Okay, what exactly is causing me to feel terrible? So often what happens is our mind gets fixated with the question, what if? What if only this had not happened? What if that had not happened? Now, what if I hadn't spoken like that? What if that person hadn't spoken like that? And now what ifs, they can just consume our mental energy. Instead, we can choose to change the question to what is? Okay. What is the actual situation right now? I'm in this particular situation. Okay, what has actually happened? See, whenever any problem comes up, this is a slightly complicated concept, but I'll try to explain it as simply as I can. See, whenever any problem comes up, we try to find a cause for that problem. And then we place the problem in some kind of causal framework. So if this is a setback, say we wanted a raise in our company and we didn't get that. We wanted a positive appraisal that didn't come up. We wanted to get into a particular project that didn't happen. Whatever the setback we got. Now, when the setback happens, we put it in a particular causal framework. Now, there are many different causal frameworks in which the same event can be put. I'll explain what this means. So, if right now I start feeling cold, now I could say I'm feeling cold because my jacket is not thick enough. I'm feeling cold because maybe I'm not used to this temperature. I'm not used to being in AC. I'm feeling cold because maybe I'm sitting right under the AC. I could say I'm feeling cold because there's climate change and the whole world is going to hell. Now we could go to various levels of causes. Now, even if there's climate change, there's not much I can do about it. If right now I'm feeling cold and if I'm sitting under the AC, what I do is, okay, maybe I can move aside. Maybe I can ask someone to decrease the temperature of the AC. So what happens is that whenever something happens, we tend to put it in some causal framework. And we ourselves may not recognize what causal framework we are putting it in. I was in America and in Connecticut, and there was a conference on spirituality and mental health over there. So I was speaking from the perspective of the Indian traditions. So There was an American girl over there. She had also started practicing Indian meditation. So when she had come with me, so I was giving theory and she was telling her experience about how she had found strength through spirituality. So she said that she was studying in a college there, and along with the studying in the college, she used to wait tables so that she could earn some money by the side. And one day she was carrying some water for a customer, and at that time the water slipped from her hand. And she said when the water slipped from her hand, the glass slipped, it fell, it was a big noise, a big mess. And now how many of you had water slipping from your hands? Anyone? It happens to the best of us sometimes. Sometimes if it happens to me when I'm a speaker, it can be particularly embarrassing. But that's what it is, embarrassing. But for her, so she said that as soon as that glass of water slipped from her hands, the first thought that came in her mind is, if I can't carry a glass of water, how will I be able to carry myself throughout my life? So what has the one got to do with the other? But that is how the mind tells a story. So now our self-worth is not determined by our capacity to carry a glass of water. But depending on where our mind is at a particular time, we give certain meanings to certain events. We are constantly telling stories to ourselves, or rather our mind is telling stories, and sometimes the story can be a toxic story. So we all place events in certain causal frameworks. Say for example, as I said, if we experience a loss. Now, when you experience a loss, I could just put it as I have lost. Okay, I had this opportunity, I had this interview, but it didn't work out. I have lost. Now, a more damaging story which the mind can tell us is I am lost. Now here, it's not just an external event that went, now I don't have any direction only. So if somebody puts say 10 years in a particular project and that project just completely collapses. Somebody invests 15 years in a relationship and that relationship breaks apart. You say, I am lost. Now, the event may be one thing, but the feeling is a different thing. I am lost. But the most damaging story that the mind can tell is, I am a loser. So in this case, when the girl dropped the glass, what happened to her? Which was the story that the mind told her? I am a loser. Isn't it? How can I carry myself throughout my life? So for us, when some people are resilient and some are not, what happens is, for people who lack resilience, their mind is telling them destructive stories. And those stories start then becoming like self-fulfilling prophecies. Oh, you're just not good enough. Now, something goes wrong, you will never be good enough. Some people have an imposter syndrome. Now I got here, but I'm not good enough to be here. So when this starts happening, then the story itself, the event is something that has happened, but the story is going along with it. And that story is the cause of the problem. So most of our emotions that arise in an event, they don't arise from the event itself. It is the story that we tell around that event. So, somebody goes to a stock market. They have no idea. Maybe they come from a tribal place. They have no idea what is a stock market. And they go to stock market and there is a big screen and there's a line on the screen that goes down. And it goes down and everybody's head goes down. And people say, what happened? Just one line went down over there. But what has happened here is that for them, there is no story associated with that line going down. But for a person who's invested in the stock, that could be their whole life story becoming a tragedy for them. So now the point is that events don't cause emotions as much as the stories that are associated with the events. Now, some stories are, of course, grounded in reality, but some are not grounded in reality. So when I'm talking about curiosity over here, curiosity means that whenever anything goes wrong, that same event could be put in many different contexts. So one person might tell the story that, okay, this is an opportunity, I lost it, other opportunities will come up. Other person might tell the story that, maybe this whole career is not meant for me only. But what career should I pursue? I don't know. That is, I am lost. Somebody else be thinking, I will never amount to anything in my life. I'm worthless. Everything I do, I'm simply creating misery for myself and creating misery for others. That is a story, I am a loser. So when you talk about curiosity, what it means is that two things. First is we try to understand what story is being told. Hmm? Instead of simply believing the story, we try to understand what is the story. It's like, suppose, say you don't have much interest in horror movies and you have a friend who has a lot of interest in horror movies, and say both of you are staying together. So that person is watching a movie, they are watching a show, and that show is maybe some shape-shifting monster or whatever is there. And then as they're watching it, they may be grimacing, they're trembling, they're clenching their fist. They're going through a whole panorama of emotions. Now they are watching the show and you are watching their show. So now if you are not watching that show, those emotions will not affect you. So what happens is we all have this capacity to observe ourselves. Sometimes what I see, our mind inside us is like a screen. And on that screen, there is not only events are coming in, but from those events, stories are being told. And sometimes you get so caught in watching that screen that whatever story is being told over there, that starts triggering emotions inside us. But we have the capacity to not just look at what is going on the screen. Like, don't just look at the movie, we look at the channel. Is this the channel I want to watch? So the different channels on the TV screen are like the different stories that can be told. So the same situation that is there, we can tell ourselves different stories, or we can change the story that we are telling ourselves. So curiosity means, okay, first understand what is the story that is being told over here. And then we can say, what is an actionable cause? Now, changing a story, now this doesn't mean we imagine, oh, everything is all right. No, it's not that simple. It is more that what is an actionable cause for this particular problem? We all face many problems in life, but like say for example, I said, if I'm feeling cold right now, climate change is not an actionable cause for me right now. An actionable cause could be, I could move aside, I could ask for a shawl or something. So for us, many times when we feel helpless in any situation, that is because we are fixating on a non-actionable cause. So for example, we get a sudden deadline and we feel it is overwhelming. This is a amount of work I'll never be able to finish. We have work and we have workload. Work is the actual task that we have to do. Workload is the mental perception of the task. Now the work we can't control, but the workload, how we perceive that task, that is something which is in our control. So basically, we could say this is the work, and on the other side is the workload. So now when I get a disproportionate amount of work, I say, everybody exploits me. Everybody dumps their work on me and I am singled out. I am treated unfairly. Now, it is possible this could be true. And it is also possible that there is a time when this cause has to be addressed. But it's also possible that sometimes an urgent deadline has come up and we could say that this is an opportunity for me to rise to the occasion, to show my boss that I am someone they can count on. So now, I am being unfairly singled out, or I have an opportunity to shine out. same event, you can have two different stories being told around it. Now, that does not mean that it's not a situation. Sometimes we may be given an excessive amount of work, and there are times when we may need to talk about it, address that issue. But when that particular situation has come up, we need to find out an actionable cause. So the curiosity is, okay, what when I'm when this event has happened and it's making me feel like this. Okay, what is the story that is being told over here? And then what alternative story can I find over here? What other actionable cause can I find in this situation? So, in general, if we just have curiosity, when we often say one door closes, another door opens, we of course understand it's a metaphorical thing. But what is it? How do the doors open? Quite often, it is that we get a new way of looking at things. We see a bigger picture. So, as I teach spirituality often based on the Bhagavad Gita, the Gita is often seen as a religious book. It can be seen that way, but it is not just a religious book. It is a book which is a guidebook for living. The original protagonist over there, the student of the Gita, is Arjuna. And Arjuna faces a situation that is a lose-lose situation. He feels that if I fight, there are my relatives on the other side, there are my elders on the other side. How can I fight against them? That's a terrible loss. But if I don't fight, then there are also aggressors and predators on the other side. They harm my family, they will continue to harm me, they'll continue to harm others. So if I don't fight, I'll be failing in my duty. So he has these two stories going on in his mind, that if I fight, I'm a bad person because I'm hurting my elders. But if I don't fight, then I'm a bad person because I'm failing in my duty. So what should I do at such a time? So now it's interesting that in the Gita, there is this, and I'm talking about actionable causes. I'll just add two more points. In the Gita, there is this whole concept of karma. Now, the word karma has, at a basic level, I'm here talking about how we can change the framework in which we are looking at things, trying to how we can find a more actionable cause for the situation we are in. So sometimes karma is seen as an idea of judgment, that whatever is happening to you, it is you must have done something bad. But that is not the way the Gita presents it. It is not that Krishna in the Gita tells Arjuna that you must have done something bad, and this was this in the distant past, in some distant life or whatever, you did this and he did this and they did this, and that's why all of you are fighting now. That's not the mood of the Gita. The focus of the Gita is encouragement. When it explains the principle of karma, it is the principle of encouragement. How encouragement? That our actions matter even when they don't seem to matter. That our actions matter even when they don't seem to matter. Now, how do we understand this? See, I depicted this earlier, that sometimes we may do work worth 100 and we get results worth 10. So the Gita explains the cause of this is that sometimes there is some negative karma coming from the past. So minus 90 from the past and plus 100 from now. So we put in 100, but we get only 10 out of it. It's like, suppose we go to a shop, or we go to a shop to buy something, and we have a credit line over there. Then we may buy something worth say 200 rupees, and the bill comes worth 2000 rupees. Hey, why? Because the bill is not just coming for what we bought at that time. We had a credit line, we've been buying for a whole month, and the bill comes at that time. Suppose in Amazon we have some card. We keep buying, nothing seems to be going from our account. But then at the end of it, suddenly a large amount goes out. So karma is like a bank account. So now sometimes what happens is, sometimes we may put in work worth 10 and we get result worth 100. And that's because there is something worth 90 plus coming from the past. Now, this idea of the results coming not just from our present actions, but also our past actions. That's something which we easily understand. Now, say sometimes two people pick up a musical instrument. Say people pick up a drum. Now, one of them has practiced a drum for 100,000 hours. The other person is picking up for the first time. And both of them start playing the drum. Now, when one person, the person who has played for 1,000 hours, plays the drum, everyone will say, more. And when the person who has never played starts playing, no more. So the result, the sound that is coming, is not just because of the action that they're doing at that time. It's also because of previous actions. So why are we talking about this? I'm just giving this as an example to expand the causal framework. Sometimes when we don't get the results that we deserve, that we think we deserve, it's not because our efforts are lacking. It's not because we are a bad person. Like loss does not mean I am a loser. Sometimes we may be going through a phase in our life when things just don't work. That's because certain negative things are going through in our life, and whatever we do, the results will not come. But that does not mean that that phase will last forever. Everything changes. The world is a place of duality. So sometimes when we go to the phase of bad karma or a phase of negative karma or positive karma. So have you heard this word called Midas touch? Now, Midas touch is when somebody touches something and turns into gold. That is a story from Greek mythology. So sometimes it happens that we start a project and it just works. We start another project and it works. Some people, they're called startup geniuses. Just they start up, they start companies and they make them big and they grow. So I was in Canada, I was talking with one person and he said to me, it seems I have got the reverse Midas touch. Whatever I touch, it seems to be like gold before I touch it. And as soon as I touch it, it starts turning into ashes. So I said, don't think of yourself as so powerful. So it is not that we have the Midas touch or we have the reverse Midas touch. It is that there are factors bigger than us that are also playing a role. So when one of the teachings of the Gita is that focus on your efforts. Don't fixate on the results. That is karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Now, why is that? Because the results, although they are important for us, they are not entirely in our control. They are not determined by our endeavors alone. Our endeavors do play a part, but that's not the only thing that plays a part. There are factors beyond us that also play a part. So what Stephen Covey talks about, circle of influence and circle of concern. Focus on your circle of influence, not the circle of concern. The Gita has taught that thousands of years ago. And it says, focus on your work. The work is our circle of influence. The results are a circle of our concern. But that's not what we can focus on right now. So curiosity is about try to find an actionable cause. So when a reversal has come, okay, it's in my circle of concern. That's what has happened now. But what can I do about it? What is in my control? What is the exact situation right now? And lastly is, what can I do about it? So that brings me to the last part. What is the acronym? ACT. So T is transformation. So now, when we talk about transformation, once we arrive at an actionable cause, okay, this is an issue that I can do something about right now. And then we start taking small, simple steps. In the when we face problems in life, one of the biggest problem is that we feel that we are powerless. Uh, I was in Australia and there's one boy came to me and he said, oh, nothing seems to be working in my life. Whatever I do, it just does not work. Said, I tried a job, I tried to get some extra education, learned up some skills, I tried a relationship, nothing seems to be working. I am utterly powerless. I told him, yeah, that sounds difficult. Whatever situation you are in, can you make it worse? He looked at me as if I'm crazy. I just told you how terrible my life is. Why should I make it worse? So I said, no, I'm not saying I should make it worse. I'm asking you, can you make it worse? Yeah. No matter how bad our situation is, we never lose the power to make it worse. So the fact is, a relationship may be on the rocks, but just remove our verbal restraint for 15 minutes, and even the relationship that has been there for 15 years will be destroyed. So we always have the power to make things worse. And what that means is, if we have the power to make things worse, we also have the power to make things better. We are never as powerless as we think. So transformation means that we focus on small, simple steps. Many times, I'll conclude with this point, that many times when that story is being told, that, oh, this is terrible, this is terrible, this is a disaster, your life is ruined. The way to change the story is that we cannot counter the mind at the level of the mind. It's like the force of emotions is going so fast, and we try to use our reason and logic to try to do something, it just doesn't work. At that time, to start doing some action. Get out of your mind. Start doing something. The idle mind is a devil's workshop. So when we focus on transformation, let me do some small thing that I can do. The same Krishna who speaks the Gita to Arjuna, later on in the Mahabharata, during the course of the war, Arjuna loses his son, Abhimanyu. And that's a devastating loss for him. And Arjuna is enraged at that time. First, he lashes out at himself, thinking, I was such a fool that I got sidelined. Somebody challenged me and I went in that direction and I was not there for my son. Then he starts blaming his brothers, saying that, you could not one of you protect my son. Then he starts blaming destiny. He just goes through this whole phase of beating himself, beating others. At that time, Krishna pulls him into a side hug. And Krishna says, oh Arjuna, in this world, bad things happen to everyone. The wise people and the unwise people. But the difference is, when bad things happen, the unwise act in ways that make things worse. The wise act in ways that make things better. Says Krishna tells Arjuna that, look at the faces of your brothers. They are in agony at the death of your son, just as you are. Please don't speak words that will increase their agony. So then Arjuna's focus shifts on hearing these words. Okay, his brothers had made a plan, but there was an opponent who thwarted their plans. And that's how Abhimanyu fell prey. So he decided that, I will teach that person a lesson. And the next day, Arjuna recovers and wins the biggest victory. The next day, the whole opposite army is arranged to try to stop Arjuna from reaching that warrior Jayadratha. And still Arjuna reaches. And then the optics of that victory are devastating for the opposite side. If our entire army cannot defend one soldier from one warrior from another warrior of the opposite side, how can we ever win this war? How can we ever fight this war? So the transformation comes when he shifts to an actionable cause. So once we shift to an actionable cause, the idea is, okay, this is the situation. What is the situation? What can I do about the situation right now? So this is where I'll conclude the last point. The transformation can be internal and external. External is where we are trying to change things. Internal is where we are trying to change thoughts. That I started traveling abroad in 2014. And the first thing that struck me when I went to America, UK, Australia is that things are so comfortable over there. The level of comfort, of course, now India is also growing economically. Things are quite comfortable here also to some extent. But after that initial impression, when I was giving talks, many Western people would come to my talks and then they would ask questions and they would open up about their lives. And I realized they had so many issues in their life. So there's so much anxiety, so much depression, so much at the level of the mind there were problems. So it was like there was people who were comfortable, but they were comfortably agitated. They were comfortably disturbed, comfortably distressed. And I often take Western people also to a tour of India. When they go across India, at that time, the first thing, especially they go to some places outside the metropolis or in the metropolis also, sees the poverty. It's quite shocking. But then, and if they go to a place like Vrindavan or they go to some Rishikesh, even when there are poor people, when they talk with them, they see the kids are playing on the streets. Now, people, even in difficult situations, seem to be quite peaceful. So it's like there are people who are uncomfortably peaceful. Uncomfortably peaceful. So now that the Mahakumbha is going on over there, I'll be going there and at the end of the month. Several of my friends have been there. So they said, now this is a place where there are crores of people, except for one tragic incident. Overall, there it's not just peaceful, actually, it's joyful. So what has happened is that in the Western world, the things have been improved enormously. But unfortunately, while the things have been improved, the thoughts have not been improved. And that is one reason why mental health problems are increasing. So this is we are one of the top tech companies in the world. Technology is very powerful in improving the things in the world. At the same time, we also need to improve our thoughts. And that comes through spirituality. So technology can improve the thoughts to the things in the outer world. Spirituality can improve the things in our inner world. So sometimes when you have to transform, we may not see the way to transform things in the outer world, but we can transform thoughts in our inner world. So through practices like meditation, we did some breathing exercise right in the beginning. We chanted the Om. Through doing meditation, in my tradition, we chant the Hare Krishna mantra. So through this kind of practices, you will find that our thoughts can become calmer, our thoughts can become clearer. And that change itself can help us change the story around us. And thus, we'll find that the capacity to bounce back from reversals will become stronger for us. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. I was talking on the topic of resilience and talk about an acronym. What was the acronym? ACT, ACT. A was acceptance. So acceptance means we just stop fighting battles that are already lost. It's not being passive, it's not living in denial, but it is letting go of battles that are lost. So lost battles we let go. And this enables us to actually move ahead and choose the battle that we can focus on. So life may be unfair, but in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. So rather than fixating, oh, why is this battle? Why did this happen to me? Instead of fixating on this, we can choose to focus on this. In the big picture, it will be fair. Okay, I lost this battle. So accept that this happened. And C was curiosity. So curiosity means that when something has happened, there is the event and there is the emotion associated with the event. So the emotion often comes with a story attached to it. So if there's a loss, the story might be I am a loser, and that's a disastrous story. So it's like the mind is like a movie inside us. Screen only the movie is going on. So instead of looking, if I am here and my mind is the screen on which I'm looking at the movie. So instead of looking at the movie, I look at the channel and I can change the channel. So that is, what is the story I'm telling myself and what alternative story can I tell myself? So the story that I'm telling myself is often associated with what if. So instead of what if, I focus on what is. What is the actual situation right now? What is the story that I am telling you? What is it that I can do about it? And that brings me to the last part of transformation. So I talked about in curiosity also about the concept of karma. that the focus is that sometimes when we get less than what we deserve, it's just some negative thing faced from the past coming through. But we will come to a positive phase. The focus is our actions always matter, even when they don't seem to. So transformation is where we focus on small, simple steps. You see, the point here is not necessarily to change the situation, but to sometimes we may feel when you're taking small, simple steps, we may think that what is this steps going to do? The problem is so huge. What is it going to change things? Well, maybe it will, maybe it will not. But just small steps, they can change our thoughts. They can stop the continuous replay that is going on. And then we will find that even that will uplift us. So we can change things through technology. We can change thoughts through spirituality. And if we can do both, then each one of us can become highly empowered. Now, we all have lots of potential, some of which we have tapped, some of which is still to be tapped. No, we all know that sometimes our thoughts work against us, sometimes we sabotage ourselves. So if we can put ourselves together by learning to act, and how much good we can do, how much better we can become, discovering that can be our life's most exciting adventure. And the Gita provides us wisdom that can open the doors for such an adventure for all of us. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so we can thank Chaitanya Charan Prabhu for such a wonderful talk. And actually, we wanted to do a panel discussion. If you all have time, we can do one or two questions and also take questions from the audience. Yeah, so hold on, and we'll have questions from everybody. So I think we can go start.
So thank you, Prabhuji, for such an enlightening conversation. I have few questions, and we'll take few questions from here, few questions from online, and we'll go over maybe 15, 20 minutes just to make sure we make the fullest of this conversation that we have with you here. I will do that. As you were touching upon the framework of ACT and talking about resilience, and you referred to Arjuna's dilemma and his conversation with Krishna, I was thinking about how all of us are Arjun in our own life, facing the struggle of work, life in the physical world, and then in our own mind. And often I think in the context of our career, one of the questions that comes in our head is how does resilience contribute to long-term career growth and adaptability? What role does it play? Any thoughts on that, Prabhuji?
Yeah. See, we can look at life as a marathon, as a sprint, or as a marathon. Now, if I see something as a sprint, then every setback becomes like a devastation. It's lost forever. But when we can see it as a marathon, then okay, in one lap I fall behind, I can come back ahead later. So when we have resilience, especially that resilience comes from a bigger worldview, a spiritual worldview, then we can take setbacks without seeing that this is the end of life. We can get knocked down, but it's one loss does not make us a loser. So that bigger worldview helps us to spring back. So in the kind of career growth, sometimes one area, second area, things may not work, but that capacity to keep exploring without losing heart, that comes from the long-term vision that is associated with resilience.
So beautifully explained. And I have been in Microsoft for 20 years, and along with me, I have had colleagues who have been with me for 20 years. A lot of colleagues left before their tenure kind of was established here. And I realized, I think, what you called out as a mindset of sprint versus marathon is really the big difference in terms of how you take an outlook towards your career as a short-term success versus a long-term success. So thank you. The other question I have with me, but if any of the audience here has any questions, I am happy to interject. Or if there are questions online, we'll take some questions from the Akashwani. I see one hand raised. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question? Sajal?
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had actually posted my question on the chat as well. I'll ask here. First of all, thanks Prabhuji for such an enlightening session. I have been meaning to read Gita for a very long time, but thanks for reminding me. Sort of. I will ask. Like I had my quick two questions. You mentioned that when there is something bad going on, let's say you didn't get credit for the work you did in team or etc. You should always try to find a positive story. So this in this situation, first how to manage stress, because we definitely are going to stress, and howsoever we try to be positive, there are times when everything seems to fall. So first, how do we manage stress? Second, how do we deal with people who continue to gaslight us? And yeah, these are the two questions.
Yeah. And they're related questions. Thank you. See, in our life, we do a spectrum of activities. And there are some activities that give strength to us. On the other hand, there are some activities that require strength. So there are some things which we like to do. We like to do, then we are enthusiastic. And by doing this, we feel rejuvenated. Some activities that require strength for us. After we do that, we feel exhausted. So now it is not just work and recreation, even our work. There are some things which we may like, some things which we do not like. So if we can make a broad inventory of, say, 3 things that give me strength and 3 things that especially require strength. And then if we can space things out so that it's not that we are continuously doing the things that require strength for us, then we will have our energy conserved with time. Sometimes it's not in our control, and sometimes we have to extend ourselves doing the things which you don't like. But sometimes it's possible that we can space things out. And this is where, if somebody has learned something like meditation or spirituality, that's one way we can get our inner strength back. But so stress management, as I said, we can't change the work that we have, but the load that the work creates in our mind, that is largely based on how much strength I have. If I am weak, carrying say 25 kgs appears difficult. If I'm strong, carrying 25 kgs doesn't appear that difficult. So what are the ways we can strengthen ourselves? We try to see that and make sure that we have at least some bandwidth to do those things. And in some ways, the same applies to people also. It said there are 2 kinds of people in the world. Some people bring happiness wherever they go, and some people bring happiness whenever they go. And some people, when they come into a room, they seem to suck the oxygen out of the room completely. They're like, every word that we speak in their presence is like, am I walking into a minefield now? So now we will have both kinds of people in the world. And sometimes the second kind of people may also be necessary for us to learn and grow. But the thing is, okay. So now, if we consider, there are people in our lives who value us, who encourage us, who affirm us, and there are people who devalue us. No, whatever we do, we may do 100 things, and they only point out the 101st thing that we did not do, and they criticize us for that. So now, if we want to make sure that our social uh, social relationships or our social life stays in a state of balance, then we need to don't devalue those who value us. There are people who encourage us, affirm us, and we start thinking, oh, they always speak like that only about me. And we don't take their words seriously. If they're valuing us, some people might be flattering us, but some people actually value us. Then we can ask them, okay, what do you see good in me? Not in a fishing for a compliment sense, but in a actual sense of recognizing. So there are people who value us, but unfortunately we devalue them. And there are people who devalue us, and we tend to overvalue them. Now, this is a recipe for social disaster. That there are some people, it's more likely that there'll be a rainstorm in the Sahara deserts, then some praise will come from their mouth. And now, from a functional perspective, of course, we have to do what is required. But sometimes we tie our identity to being valued by someone. So, in general, if there are some people who keep devaluing us, we don't have to start devaluing them or demeaning them, but stop overvaluing their opinion. Keep them at a distance. And the way to do that is start valuing those who value us. And this is where, again, the spiritual people, they are able to see the divinity that is at the core of each one of us. And they see that goodness within us, and they can help us develop that goodness. So that's the really basis was second part of the question with respect to how to deal with people. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very gratefully. Thank you.
Don't devalue the people who value us. Yeah.
Can I ask my question?
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes when somebody is repeatedly devalued, they start going into the mood. I don't care what you think about me. Now, see, now there are two different things over here. See, actions have to have consequences. See, if somebody is functionally not doing their job, then that has to be pointed out to them. And if they don't change, then there have to be consequences for that. Whatever it may be, they may be shifted to another role, a less responsible role, or whatever. We're not talking about functional inadequacies over here. I'm talking about some people, they are just habitually critical. And if we are inadequate and there are objective criteria which show that I'm falling short of certain things, then if certain action is taken, we may feel bad, but that doesn't seem that unfair to us. That doesn't affect us as much as somebody who is habitually criticizing us. So when you're talking about now, I don't care should not be an attitude for justifying irresponsibility. It is for creating a distance where somebody is expecting unrealistic things from us, or especially somebody is habitually critical about us. Okay, in those situations specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And I'll take one question from here and then go back online. And I think from what you just said, I think having a distinction between and being able to identify people is, I think, the key of how you deal with them. I'm changing the altitude of the question. Just one question on the change that we are in right now, where a lot of uncertainty, economic uncertainty with AI coming in. I think there are also disruptions, economic disruption, technology disruption. And the simple question is, how can organization build resilience to withstand economic and industry disruptions? And what is the role that we as employees can play in that?
Yeah. See, the more things change, the more we need to hold on to the things that don't change. Now, with every technology that has come, there have been people who have predicted catastrophe. When the first time the printing press was made, and they said, oh, if everybody gets books, people will misunderstand, people will misinterpret, there'll be chaos. So right from that time on, when the internet came, there were problems. So in general, technology cannot replace people, but technology will replace people who can't work with technology. So in that sense, the resilience would be that the world changes, and we need to learn to change with the world. So the thing is, we say value change, but don't change values. We need to value change and see how we can adapt to change. But there are fundamental values which will always be true, whether there's AI or there's no AI, what else. So value change, but don't change values.
Perfect. Thank you, Prabhuji. This was very valuable. In the interest of time, can I ask you a simple question on this new book that you have come up with, which is Gita for the CEOs? And in our life, I think we are CEOs of our own home, our own universe, our own areas. We love to understand what is this book about, how does it apply to ourselves? And I think you have some of the copies available today. And I think our employees would be looking at buying or purchasing some of these with your autograph. If you are around, feel free to come to MPR5 and you can pick up a copy of this book. But Prabhuji, please talk about this book and talk about how resilience and other broader spectrum is covered in this book.
Yeah. So I have been studying and trying to understand the Gita for last 30 years. So one of the things that struck me is that the Gita is often seen as either a religious book or a philosophical book. And while both of those ways of looking are valid, but they're not complete. Gita is, after all, a book of decision making for guidance for a person who was very much in the world. Arjuna was a warrior. So those aspects of the Gita that are highly actionable, So I have taken 10 principles from the Gita, and I have to focus on explain them, those which will be especially relevant for corporate life. And because the Gita is an original conversation, I also try to present the message of the Gita here as a conversation between two corporate leaders, one who knows the Gita and one who wants to know the Gita. And there are also the simple kind of sketches and diagram that I was doing, the diagrams to illustrate it. So this could be a very good way to see how the timeless wisdom of the Gita can bring timely empowerment into our life today.
Thank you. And for those who are in the room, I think books are going to be behind on the table. And folks who are online, I think the invite had the link to the book, which is on Amazon. So feel free to look at the book, do a preview, and then if you have thoughts on purchasing them, well, I mean, please go ahead and buy them. And if you're looking at taking a signature copy from Prabhuji, I think we can figure out how to get your signature for Microsoft employees. That's a favor we'll ask. And thanks a ton for your time and for this timeless wisdom that you shared with us. This was incredibly valuable in the context of how we work and how we live life in these turbulent times.
Thank you very much.
On behalf of Microsoft.
Thank you for your participation.
If you are purchasing a book, feel free to, like Prabhuji will be around, you can feel free to get a signed copy from him.